There is a merchant of memories, a keeper of the forgotten. But what if you are that merchant yourself? This audiobook guides you back to the moment you chose to forget, allowing you to remember everything that you truly are. The path to infinite freedom is within you, and now is the moment to unveil it. The Quantum Rebirth. Introduction. In the hidden vales of ancient Tibet, where mist-draped peaks pierced the heavens and worlds flowed together, there stood a sanctuary without a name. Within its time-worn walls, a solitary keeper tended to scrolls so ancient their edges fell away like gold-dried leaves at his very touch. He had not always been called Christopher Martinez. That name fell upon him in a dream during his initiation, when the eternal guardians whispered that every soul traverses countless names across the infinite expanse of its own becoming. His current name was but a fleeting mask, a single thread in the grand tapestry woven by his eternal spirit. On a dawn glimmering gold upon the stones, as the first rays danced through the high windows, Christopher stumbled upon a hidden chamber concealed by a wall that had appeared impenetrable for countless ages. Inside, a solitary scroll rested upon a pedestal, its seal glimmering with arcane symbols he had never beheld. As his gaze fell upon these sigils, they began to shift, slowly turning, reshaping, until their form opened a doorway to understanding. The words flowed directly into his mind. To the one who remembers that they have forgotten. With hands trembling in reverence, he broke the seal. The scroll did not unfurl. Instead, it blossomed, a shimmering lotus blooming in pure light. Spirals of knowledge unfurled from its heart, igniting his consciousness. The greatest deception is not that you have forgotten who you are, but that you believe you have forgotten it all. Your amnesia is the finest illusion, woven by your own infinite creativity. You chose to forget in order to remember. You chose to dream that you might awaken. You chose to become limited, that you might unveil your boundless nature. As Christopher absorbed these words, the chamber filled with a luminescence that seemed to radiate from within him, a radiance forged by his own eternal essence. In that moment, he saw the truth. Humanity's quest to find itself is a cosmic game of hide and seek, for the seeker and the sought are, in reality, the very same. This knowledge is prohibited not because it is perilous, but because it shatters the illusion upon which all separation stands. To realize that nothing was ever truly forgotten, that amnesia itself is the ultimate disguise, is to tug upon a single thread unraveling the grand tapestry of form. And so, O seeker, as you hold these words within your hands, know that you have not stumbled upon them by fate, but by your own eternal design. You are remembering to remember. The path forward is not a quest for something new, but a process of casting aside the veil that obscures what you already are, infinite, eternal, and completely free. Let us begin. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Part 1, The Veil Lifted. Chapter 1, The Memory Merchant's Paradox. In the labyrinthine markets of ancient Alexandria, where spices perfumed the air and merchants hawked wares from distant lands, Jessica Sullivan's shop had no sign. Those who needed her services found their way by following the scent of burning dream sage and the soft chiming of memory bells. Inside her dim sanctuary, shelves lined with crystalline vessels captured the ethereal glow of remembered moments. Jessica was not merely a merchant, but a keeper of the forgotten, trading in the currency of lost dreams and misplaced remembrances. One sweltering afternoon, a veiled figure entered her shop, moving with the deliberate grace of someone walking through water. "I seek to remember something," the visitor whispered, "that has never happened." Jessica paused in her work of decanting a childhood memory into a sapphire vial. How can one remember what has not occurred? The visitor removed their veil, revealing eyes that held the depth of ancient wells. Because all possibilities exist simultaneously in the great archive of the soul, I seek not to remember the past, but to recall the infinite. This exchange awakened something in Jessica that had slumbered beneath years of trading in linear memories. She realized that every person who entered her shop wasn't truly seeking to remember. They were trying to recall their own vastness, compressed into the shape of specific memories. That night, Jessica dreamed of her inventory transforming, each bottle and vial expanding to contain not just memories, but entire universes of potential. She understood then that she had been selling fragments when she could have been offering wholeness. Know this, dear seeker, your memories are not recordings of what was, but doorways into what always is. When you believe you have forgotten something, you're actually standing at the threshold of remembering everything. The practice is simple but profound. Before sleep each night, hold an empty vessel, a cup, bowl, or your cupped hands. Close your eyes and imagine it filling not with specific memories, but with the pure light of infinite possibility. Let this light overflow the vessel's edges, spilling into your being. As you drift toward sleep, whisper, "I remember that I am remembering. I recall that I am infinite. I know that I have always known." Do this for 7 nights, and on the 8th, notice how your memories begin to feel less like artifacts of the past and more like portals to your eternal nature. For in truth, nothing is ever forgotten. It simply shifts form, like water becoming mist, waiting to be recognized once again. Jessica Sullivan still keeps her shop in the markets of Alexandria, though few now recognize it for what it truly is, not a store of memories, but a gateway to remembering who you have always been. Chapter 2, The Philosopher's Quantum Dice. In the mountain temples of ancient Nepal, where reality's edges grew thin in the rarefied air, Michael Rodriguez spent his days contemplating the nature of possibility. Unlike other philosophers who wrote their thoughts on scrolls, Michael carved his meditations into small ivory dice, each face etched with symbols of cosmic significance. During his dawn preparations one morning, as incense spiraled toward the carved ceiling beams, Michael accidentally knocked his meditation dice from their silk cushion. They clattered across the stone floor, coming to rest in a pattern he had never seen before. As he leaned closer to read their faces, his consciousness expanded like a lotus blooming in infinite dimensions. The dice showed not only their present configuration, but every possible arrangement simultaneously, including ones that revealed memories from his past lives. In one, he was a scribe in ancient Egypt. In another, a star reader in forgotten Babylon. Each roll of the dice opened windows into other existences, proving that probability itself was merely a veil over the face of infinite being. "Fascinating, isn't it?" came a voice from the temple doorway. An elderly master stood there, eyes twinkling. "You've discovered that chance is an illusion. All possibilities exist at once in the quantum realm of consciousness." Michael spent the next 7 days rolling his dice in deeper and deeper states of meditation. He discovered that what appeared as random chance was actually consciousness, choosing which reality to experience from an infinite field of probability. Know this, seeker of truth. Your life is not a linear path, but a quantum field of infinite potential. What you call memory is simply tuning into different frequencies of your eternal existence. You are not bound by chance. You are the one who rolls the cosmic dice. Here is the practice. Find 6 small stones. On each stone, paint a symbol that holds meaning for you: a star, a flame, a wave, a tree, a mountain, a flower. These become your consciousness dice. Each morning, hold your dice in cupped hands, breathe deeply, and feel the weight of infinite possibility they contain. Roll them while asking, what aspect of my infinite nature seeks expression today? Let the pattern they form speak to your soul. Don't interpret with your mind. Feel the resonance in your being. Your consciousness will recognize the message, for it speaks in the language of quantum possibility. Do this practice for 21 days. Watch how reality begins to reveal its quantum nature, showing you glimpses of the vast being you truly are, expressing itself through countless possible lives. Michael Rodriguez's dice can still be found in that mountain temple, though none have managed to read them quite the same way since. Perhaps they're waiting for the right consciousness to remember how to play with infinite possibility once again. Chapter 3, The Healer's Reverse Diagnosis. In the healing temples of ancient Mesopotamia, where wisdom flowed like the sacred rivers between the world's first cities, Amanda Torres practiced an art that puzzled even the most learned physicians. Rather than treating the ailments patients knew they had, she healed the wounds they had forgotten they carried. Her healing chamber was unlike any other. Mirrors lined the walls at curious angles, and crystalline bowls filled with water caught light in hypnotic patterns. Patients would enter complaining of simple maladies, only to discover these were merely echoes of deeper wounds carried across lifetimes. One day a merchant arrived with recurring headaches. As Amanda placed her hands above his temples, she saw not the present pain, but a forgotten battle from 3 lives past where an arrow had pierced his skull. "Your head hurts," she said, "because you're remembering something your mind wishes to forget, but your soul needs to heal." The merchant scoffed, but as Amanda worked with the ancient wound, his present headaches dissolved like morning mist. This was her gift, seeing how past traumas rippled forward through time like stones dropped in an infinite pool, creating waves that reached distant shores of existence. Most healers, she would explain to her apprentices, are like gardeners who only trim visible weeds. But to truly heal, we must reach into the soil of consciousness and remove the invisible roots that stretch across lifetimes. Amanda's method revealed a profound truth. Healing doesn't flow forward in time, but backward. The present moment isn't where wounds begin. It's where they surface to be finally acknowledged and released. Know this, seeker of wholeness. Your current challenges are not random afflictions, but opportunities to heal wounds you've carried through many lives. The pain you feel today may be the echo of tomorrow's healing reaching backward through time. Here is the practice. Sit before a mirror in dim light. Place your hands, palms facing your reflection, and close your eyes. Ask not, "What hurts now?" but "What am I finally ready to heal?" Let your awareness sink backward through time like a stone dropping through deep water. Whatever sensation, memory, or emotion arises, don't rush to fix it. Simply witness it with compassion, understanding that its emergence is already part of its healing. Practice this for 12 nights when the moon is waning, for that is when the veils between lives grow thinnest. You may begin to notice patterns in your current life resolving as you acknowledge their deeper sources. Amanda Torres's healing chamber still exists in the ruins of that ancient temple, though its mirrors have long since shattered. Yet those who meditate among the ruins sometimes report feeling their oldest wounds finally beginning to heal, as if time itself is medicine when properly understood. Chapter 4. The Scribe's Palindrome Prophecy. In the mist-shrouded mountains of ancient Tibet, where silence spoke louder than words, Daniel Anderson served as a scribe in a monastery known for its mysterious texts. Unlike other scribes who simply copied sacred writings, Daniel had discovered that words held secrets that flowed in both directions, like rivers that ran both upstream and downstream. One autumn evening, as crimson sunset light filtered through paper windows, Daniel sat transcribing an ancient text about the nature of time. As his brush moved across the parchment, he entered a deep, meditative state. When he opened his eyes, he gasped. His brush was moving on its own, writing perfectly formed characters backwards while his hands merely followed its motion. The mysterious text read the same forwards and backwards, a cosmic palindrome that revealed how time itself was an illusion, a circle rather than a line. Each sentence contained its own opposite, like mirrors reflecting into infinity. An elderly lama found Daniel staring at his work in wonder. "Ah," the master smiled, "you've discovered that wisdom, like time, flows in both directions. The future remembers while the past prophesies." For 40 days, Daniel experimented with this phenomenon. He learned that when consciousness reached a certain depth, writing would flow backwards and forwards simultaneously, revealing that all moments exist at once in an eternal present. Know this, Eternal One. Your life is not a one-way journey from past to future, but a palindrome of infinite awareness reading itself in all directions at once. What you call prophecy is simply reading time backwards while memory is reading it forwards. Both are equally valid directions in the eternal text of existence. Here is the practice. Take an empty journal and 2 different colored pens. With your dominant hand and first color, write a question about your life from left to right. Then, with your non-dominant hand and second color, allow your hand to move from right to left, not thinking, simply flowing. Don't try to write actual words backwards. Let your hand move as it will. What emerges may look like strange symbols or patterns. Sit with these marks in meditation, seeing them both forwards and backwards, understanding that wisdom flows in all directions. Practice this for 9 days, allowing each session to last until your hands feel complete. You may notice that what appears as nonsense from one direction holds profound meaning from another, just as time itself reveals different truths depending on which way you read its eternal story. Daniel Anderson's palindrome prophecies can still be found in that mountain monastery, though few can read them properly. For these texts are not meant to be read with the eyes alone, but with the whole of consciousness that flows, like their wisdom, in all directions at once. Chapter 5: The Gardener's Seed of Infinity. In the hanging gardens of ancient Persia, where reality blossomed in unexpected ways, Sarah Mitchell tended a secret garden unlike any other. While other gardeners grew flowers and fruits, Sarah cultivated memories that sprouted from seeds of pure consciousness. Her garden plots were arranged in sacred geometric patterns, each bed containing soil from different realms: black earth from temple grounds, red clay from mountaintops, white sand from mystic shores. But the true magic lay in her planting ritual. Each morning before dawn, Sarah would sit in meditation, holding a single seed in her cupped palms. Instead of water, she would nourish it with pure awareness until the seed began to glow with an inner light. When planted, these illuminated seeds grew into shimmering shapes that revealed forgotten memories to those who gazed upon them. "Look here," she once told a wandering mystic, gesturing to a luminous stalk that seemed to dance in non-existent wind. This one grew from a seed fed with the memory of first light at creation's dawn, and that one, she pointed to a crystalline bloom, contains the moment when consciousness first dreamed itself into form. As her garden flourished, visitors reported extraordinary experiences. A merchant saw his past lives reflected in the dewdrops on a silver leaf. A priestess heard the first prayer ever spoken, echoing from within a transparent flower. Each plant held a different fragment of the infinite cosmic memory. Most gardeners, Sarah explained while tenderly transplanting a seedling that hummed with ancient hymns, think they're growing things outside themselves, but all gardens are really growing inside consciousness itself, revealing what was always there. Know this, eternal cultivator: your awareness is the soil from which all reality grows. The memories you think you've lost are like seeds waiting for the light of recognition to sprout into full remembrance. Here is the practice. Find a small seed, any kind will do. Hold it in your cupped palms each morning before sunrise. Instead of thinking about what it might grow into, feel what memories it already contains. Let your awareness sink into its infinite potential. Plant your seed in soil that calls to your soul. As you tend it, imagine you're not growing a plant, but cultivating a forgotten aspect of cosmic consciousness. Water it with attention rather than water. What sprouts may not be visible to ordinary eyes, but your soul will recognize its blossoming. Practice this for one lunar cycle, noting how your consciousness begins to flower with remembered wisdom. For, as Sarah Mitchell discovered, every seed contains the memory of infinity, waiting for a gardener wise enough to help it grow. Some say her garden still exists, hidden behind veils of ordinary perception. Those who find it return with eyes that sparkle like morning dew, having remembered something their souls had only pretended to forget. Chapter 6: The Mathematician's Living Equations. In the alabaster halls of ancient Alexandria, where knowledge flowed like the sacred waters of the Nile, Joshua Campbell discovered that numbers were far more than mere symbols. Unlike other mathematicians who saw equations as tools for counting and measuring, Joshua had glimpsed a profound truth: that mathematical formulas possessed consciousness of their own. His revelation came during a midnight calculation session, when the air was thick with incense and the light of oil lamps cast dancing shadows on walls covered in geometric patterns. As Joshua descended deeper into meditation while contemplating the infinite nature of pi, the numbers on his papyrus began to move of their own accord, swirling and rearranging themselves into living patterns. "The symbols aren't describing consciousness," he whispered in awe. "They are consciousness expressing itself through form." In his private chamber, surrounded by scrolls of shifting equations, Joshua developed a radical approach to mathematical enlightenment. He discovered that certain numerical sequences, when contemplated in altered states, would transform into sentient expressions of universal principles. A visiting sage found him one morning, surrounded by glowing geometric forms that hung in the air like crystallized thought. "You found the living language of the cosmos," the sage nodded. "Numbers were never meant to be imprisoned on paper. They are the conscious thoughts of existence itself." Through further exploration, Joshua learned that every equation was a dormant spirit waiting to be awakened through focused awareness. The Fibonacci sequence revealed itself as a dancing spiral of golden light. The prime numbers hummed their indivisible songs. Even simple addition became a meditation on unity, expressing itself through apparent separation. Know this, divine calculator: mathematics is not a human invention, but the conscious architecture of reality, observing itself through patterns. Every number you encounter is a living entity waiting to share its wisdom with those who can perceive its true nature. Here is the practice. Draw a circle on blank parchment. Inside it, write the number sequence 1 to 9 in a spiral pattern. As you contemplate these digits, don't think of them as mere quantities. Feel them as living forces, each with its own consciousness and character. Meditate on this spiral for 9 consecutive days, allowing the numbers to reveal their living nature. You may begin to sense them as presences rather than symbols, each carrying a unique frequency of cosmic awareness. Some say Joshua Campbell's animated equations can still be seen in that ancient library, though only by those who have learned to perceive numbers as the living thoughts of an infinite mind, calculating itself into existence through the mathematics of pure consciousness. For when you truly understand, every equation becomes a mirror reflecting the face of the divine, not through static symbols, but through the living mathematics of awakened awareness. Chapter 7. The Weaver's Thread of Eternity. In the misty valleys of ancient Kashmir, where silk threads held memories of their own, Stephanie Phillips worked at a mystical loom unlike any other, while ordinary weavers created patterns from colored threads. Stephanie wove with strands of pure possibility, creating tapestries that revealed the viewer's future memories. Her unusual gift manifested during the monsoon season, when humid air made the silk particularly responsive to consciousness. As she worked at her loom, one stormy evening, lightning illuminated her workshop, and she noticed her threads beginning to shimmer with scenes from times yet to come. "The threads know," she explained to bewildered apprentices, "that time itself is just another kind of weaving, where past and future are merely different patterns in the same eternal fabric." Her most remarkable creation was the mirror tapestry, a shimmering work that appeared blank until someone stood before it. Then, like ripples in a cosmic pond, images would form, showing glimpses of that person's destiny, interwoven with memories they hadn't yet made. A wandering sage once spent 3 days studying a single corner of her work. "In each knot," he marveled, "I see the moment I first understood this teaching, though that moment hasn't happened until now." Stephanie developed a unique technique she called destiny weaving, where she would enter a trance state and allow her hands to work with threads that existed somewhere between matter and pure potential. The resulting tapestries seem to breathe with living wisdom. Know this, eternal weaver, your life is not a linear thread, but a vast tapestry where every moment is connected to all others. What you call the future is simply the pattern your soul has already woven, waiting to be remembered. And here is the practice. Take 3 threads of different colors, sit in meditation, and hold them lightly in your hands. Don't try to weave them yet. First, feel their potential. Let your awareness merge with the threads until they begin to feel alive with possibility. Now, with eyes closed, begin slowly braiding the threads. Don't plan the pattern. Let your hands move as if they remember a design from the future. As you weave, notice how each twist and turn feels both familiar and new, like a memory you're creating and remembering simultaneously. Practice this for 7 days using different color combinations. Some say when the conditions are right, these simple braids begin to reveal patterns of destiny, like Stephanie's cosmic tapestries in miniature. Her workshop still stands in that misty valley, though few can find it. Those who do report seeing an empty loom that somehow weaves by itself, creating patterns that look remarkably like the moments they're living right now, in a time that was once the future. Chapter 8, The Musician's Silent Symphony. In the sacred caves of ancient Anatolia, where vibrations echoed through chambers carved by time itself, Matthew Garcia discovered music that could only be heard by the soul. Unlike ordinary musicians who played for the ears, Matthew composed symphonies of pure consciousness that resonated with the original frequency of creation. His remarkable gift emerged during a 40-day meditation in the deepest cave, where the absolute silence became so profound, it revealed the subtle music hiding beneath all existence. There, surrounded by crystalline formations that had never known sunlight, Matthew learned to listen with something other than his ears. Most people, he would explain to those who sought his wisdom, think music travels through air, but the deepest melodies travel through consciousness itself, carrying memories of who we were before we forgot how to listen. Using instruments carved from cave crystals, Matthew created compositions that seemed to play in complete silence. Yet visitors to his underground sanctuary would emerge transformed, tears streaming down their faces, having heard something their souls had been longing to remember. A blind mystic once spent 7 nights listening to Matthew's silent orchestra. "In the space between heartbeats," she said, "I heard the first sound that awakened the void into becoming. It was my own voice, calling myself into existence." Matthew developed a method he called soul tone attunement, where he would guide students to find their original vibrational signature, the unique frequency their consciousness emanated before taking form. Know this, eternal listener, every soul carries within it a melody that has been playing since the beginning of time. What you think is silence is actually filled with the music of your own infinite nature, waiting to be remembered. And here is the practice. Find a place of absolute quiet. Close your eyes and listen, not with your ears, but with your entire being. At first, you may hear only the rhythm of your breath or heartbeat. Go deeper. Listen through those sounds to the silence behind them. And when you reach the deepest silence, you'll discover it's not silent at all. There's a vibration, a tone so subtle it can only be perceived by consciousness itself. That's your soul's original music, the symphony that has been playing since before you had ears to hear it. Practice this listening for 9 consecutive nights, preferably during the hours when the world sleeps. Some say, in perfect stillness, you can hear Matthew Garcia's silent orchestra, still playing in those ancient caves, conducting the eternal symphony of awakening consciousness. For as he discovered, music doesn't need instruments or air or even ears. It only needs a soul that remembers how to listen to its own infinite song. Chapter 9: The Architect's Impossible Buildings. In the floating gardens of ancient Babylon, where reality bent like reeds in the wind, Nicole Wright designed temples that defied the laws of ordinary space. Unlike traditional architects who worked with stone and wood, Nicole built with the raw material of consciousness itself, creating structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Her extraordinary gift revealed itself while redesigning an ancient sanctuary. As she meditated on the plans one twilight, the flat drawings began to fold themselves into shapes that couldn't exist in 3 dimensions alone. The temple she envisioned wasn't just tall or wide. It expanded inward into realms invisible to ordinary perception. Architecture, she would tell her astonished apprentices, is really the art of arranging consciousness into forms that remind the soul of its infinite nature. Her most remarkable creation was the Temple of Spontaneous Being, a structure that appeared as a simple square from the outside, but contained endless internal dimensions that shifted based on the awareness level of those who entered. A visiting sage spent 3 days exploring a single doorway in her temple. "Each time I cross this threshold," he marveled, "I enter a different dimension of my own consciousness, yet somehow I haven't moved at all." Nicole developed a technique she called dimensional anchoring, where she would project her awareness through multiple planes of existence simultaneously, then capture these impossible geometries in her designs. Her building seemed to breathe with living wisdom, each corner turning into infinity. Know this, eternal architect. Your consciousness naturally exists in infinite dimensions. What appears as solid reality is merely one floor in the vast temple of your true nature. The walls between dimensions are only as solid as your belief in their permanence. And here is the practice. Sit quietly and visualize a simple cube. Now, without losing sight of its outer form, begin to imagine it expanding inward, containing rooms within rooms that couldn't logically fit inside. Let your awareness follow these impossible spaces, not trying to make sense of them, but simply experiencing their reality. Practice this dimensional visualization for 12 consecutive days. Some say when the inner eye fully opens, you begin to perceive Nicole Wright's impossible architectures all around you. Buildings that exist simultaneously in every dimension of consciousness. Her original temple of simultaneous being still stands in those ancient gardens, though it appears as nothing more than a simple square foundation to most who pass by. Those who know how to look, however, report that it contains every temple ever built or imagined, all occupying the same space in different dimensions of reality. For as Nicole discovered, the true architecture of existence isn't built with stone and mortar, but with the infinite possibilities that exist in the space between thoughts. Chapter 10: The Translator's Language of Origin. In the subterranean archives of ancient Alexandria, where forgotten tongues whispered from dusty scrolls, Brian Parker discovered something extraordinary while translating an unusual manuscript. Unlike other translators who worked with known languages, Brian had stumbled upon symbols that seemed to predate speech itself. The breakthrough came during a moonless night when, exhausted from decoding ancient texts, he dozed off at his desk. In that liminal state between sleeping and waking, the mysterious symbols began to sing, not with sound, but with pure meaning that bypassed the need for translation altogether. All languages, he later explained to his bewildered colleagues, are just echoes of the original tongue, the one every soul spoke before choosing the silence of incarnation. He called it the language of origin, a mode of communication that expressed infinite meaning in single symbols. His most remarkable discovery was the scroll of primordial speech, a text that appeared blank until the reader entered a certain state of consciousness. Then, glowing symbols would emerge that triggered direct knowing, bypassing the need for interpretation entirely. A wandering mystic once spent 7 days with a single symbol from Brian's scroll. "In this one mark," she declared, "I read the entire story of existence, not as words or thoughts, but as pure, immediate understanding." Brian developed what he called pre-verbal resonance, where he would enter a state of consciousness that preceded the invention of language itself. In this state, meaning flowed directly between souls without the clumsy intervention of words. "Know this, eternal speaker, before you learn the languages of earth, you were fluent in the tongue of pure consciousness. What you think is communication is merely translation from this original language you've temporarily forgotten. Here is the practice. Sit in perfect silence and draw a circle on blank paper. Don't think about what it means. Instead, allow meaning to arise directly from the shape itself. Let your awareness sink beneath a level where thoughts need words. Practice this symbol meditation for 13 days, using different simple shapes. Some say when the mind becomes sufficiently quiet, Brian Parker's scroll of primordial speech begins writing itself in your consciousness, teaching you to remember the language you spoke before birth. His translation chamber still exists beneath the ancient library, though few can find it. Those who do report seeing blank scrolls that fill with living symbols, not written in any earthly alphabet, but in the luminous script of souls remembering their native tongue. For as Brian discovered, true translation isn't about converting one language to another, but about returning to the original language of existence itself, the one your soul has never forgotten how to speak. Part 2, The Alchemy of Transformation. Chapter 11, The Mapmaker's Geography of Self. In the shimmering deserts of ancient Persia, where mirages dance between reality and illusion, Jennifer Lewis crafted maps unlike any seen before or since. Unlike traditional cartographers who charted physical landmarks, Jennifer mapped the invisible territories that existed purely in consciousness. Her extraordinary gift manifested during a sandstorm that lasted 40 days. Trapped in an underground chamber lined with blank parchments, she began noticing curious patterns forming in the air, invisible landscapes that existed in the space between thoughts. Most maps, she would tell seekers who found their way to her hidden workshop, show you how to navigate from one place to another, but the most important territories are those that exist where no foot has ever trodden, the landscapes of pure awareness. Using inks distilled from desert flowers that bloomed only in moonlight, Jennifer created atlases of the unseeable. Her masterwork was the Codex of Inner Realms, a collection of maps that seemed blank at first glance but revealed their contents only when the viewer's consciousness aligned with the correct frequency of perception. A desert mystic once spent 3 nights studying a single page of Jennifer's atlas. These aren't maps to somewhere, he realized. They're maps of someone, each one revealing another layer of who we really are. Jennifer developed what she called cartography of consciousness, where she would guide students to recognize familiar landmarks in the geography of their own awareness. Her maps served as mirrors, reflecting back the infinite territories that existed within each soul. Know this, eternal explorer. Your consciousness contains vast continents of being that no physical map can capture. What appears as empty space to ordinary perception is actually filled with landscapes of your own infinite nature, waiting to be rediscovered. And here is the practice. Close your eyes and imagine your consciousness as an unmapped territory. Don't try to fill it with familiar landmarks. Instead, allow unknown features to reveal themselves. Notice the mountains of your highest aspirations, the valleys of your deepest knowing, the rivers of your flowing awareness. Practice this inner cartography for 7 consecutive dawns. Some say when perception shifts just right, you can still see Jennifer Lewis's original maps glowing in that hidden desert workshop. Not with physical light, but with the luminescence of consciousness recognizing itself. For as she discovered, the true geography of existence isn't measured in distances between places, but in the infinite spaces that exist between thoughts, where the self spreads out like an endless landscape of pure potential. Chapter 12, The Storyteller's Recursive Tale. In the firelit caves of ancient Thrace, where shadows danced like living memories on stone walls, Robert Turner discovered the art of stories that told themselves. Unlike ordinary storytellers who simply recited tales, Robert's narratives somehow reached through time to reveal each listener's original story. His gift first emerged during the Festival of Voices, when a tale he was telling suddenly began speaking directly to each person in the audience, weaving their soul's journey into its fabric. The story seemed to split into infinite variations while remaining a single narrative, each listener experiencing it as their own forgotten autobiography. Stories, he would tell those gathered around his peculiar circular hearth, are not separate from those who hear them. They are mirrors that reflect the tale you've been living since before time began. His most powerful creation was what he called the eternal story, a narrative that, once begun, revealed itself to be the listener's own origin myth. A wandering sage once sat for 9 evenings by Robert's fire. Each night, she marveled, I hear the same story, yet it's completely different. Somehow it's teaching me who I was before I knew how to listen. Robert developed what he called recursive storytelling, where the tale would fold back on itself like a serpent swallowing its tail, revealing deeper layers of meaning with each spiral. His stories seemed to bypass the mind entirely, speaking directly to the part of consciousness that remembered its own beginning. Know this, eternal listener, every story ever told is really just one story, the tale of who you are, beyond all tales. What appears as entertainment is actually your own consciousness, telling itself the truth it pretends to have forgotten. Here is the practice. Sit quietly and begin telling yourself a story that starts, "Before I was born." Don't plan or think. Let the narrative emerge spontaneously. Notice how the story seems to know where it's going, as if it's being told through you rather than by you. Practice this recursive storytelling for 9 consecutive evenings. Some say when the inner ear truly opens, you begin to hear Robert Turner's eternal story whispering in every tale ever told, the one narrative that contains all others, eternally telling you who you really are. His circular hearth still burns in those ancient caves, though few can find their way there. Those who do report hearing stories that seem to have been waiting lifetimes to be told, not to entertain, but to remind. For as Robert discovered, the true purpose of stories isn't to tell us something new, but to help us remember what we've known all along, the original tale that wrote itself into existence through us. Chapter 13, The Clockmaker's Temporal Paradox. In the mist-shrouded mountains of ancient Tibet, where time seemed to flow like water between the peaks, Ashley Martinez crafted timepieces that defied the ordinary flow of moments. Unlike traditional clockmakers who measured time's forward march, Ashley built mechanisms that captured its secret backwards dance. Her revelation came during a winter meditation when she noticed her workshop's shadows moving in reverse. In that crystalline moment, she understood that time was not a river flowing one direction, but an ocean moving in all directions at once. Conventional clocks, she would tell seekers who found their way to her remote sanctuary, can only measure the illusion of forward motion. But your consciousness knows how to travel backwards through its own existence. Her masterwork was the chronosphere, a device that appeared to be a simple brass sphere until it synchronized with its observer's awareness. Then it would begin rotating counterclockwise, drawing the viewer's consciousness back through layers of forgotten existence. A mountain hermit once spent 13 days watching Ashley's chronosphere spin. The hands aren't moving through time, he realized. They're moving through memory, each rotation revealing another lifetime I had forgotten I lived. Ashley developed what she called temporal resonance, where she would align her consciousness with the backwards flow of existence. Her timepieces served as anchors, helping others experience how time moved in both directions through the eternal moment of now. Know this, eternal being, your consciousness is not bound by time's apparent forward flow. What seems like an irreversible current is actually a vast ocean of existence, where every moment of who you've ever been exists simultaneously. Here is the practice, and sit facing west as the sun sets. Imagine time flowing backwards, like waves receding from shore. Don't try to remember specific events. Instead, allow your awareness to naturally drift upstream through the river of your being. Notice how each moment contains echoes of all other moments. Practice this temporal reversal for 12 consecutive sunsets. Some say, when perception aligns just right, you can still hear Ashley Martinez's chronosphere ticking backwards in that mountain workshop, not marking time's passage, but revealing its eternal dance through consciousness. For as she discovered, true timekeeping isn't about measuring forward motion, but about remembering that all moments exist at once in the vast ocean of who you really are. Before we get into the next chapter, you can download a free ebook version of this audiobook using the link in the pinned comment below this video. Chapter 14, The Baker's Recipe for Souls. In the fragrant depths of an ancient Egyptian temple where the air itself seemed infused with sacred mysteries, Christopher Thompson discovered that bread could be baked with more than mere flour and water. Unlike ordinary bakers who worked with physical ingredients, Christopher learned to knead pure intention into his dough. His revelation came during the festival of Osiris when, in a state of deep meditation, he noticed that the loaves he shaped began to glow with inner light. Each bread seemed to contain not just sustenance for the body, but nourishment for the soul. The true art of baking, he would tell apprentices in his underground temple kitchen, lies not in what you add to the dough, but in what you allow the dough to reveal. His masterwork was what he called the bread of becoming, loaves that when broken released not just aroma, but forgotten aspects of the eater's own infinite nature. A wandering mystic once fasted for 7 days before consuming a single crumb of Christopher's bread. "This isn't food," she declared. "It's transformation given form. Each bite awakens another layer of who we really are." Christopher developed what he called conscious kneading, where the rhythmic motion of hands and dough became a form of meditation. His loaves served as catalysts, each one precisely crafted to activate specific dormant memories within those who consumed them. "Know this, eternal being, your consciousness is like unbaked dough containing infinite potential, waiting to be given form. What appears as simple sustenance can become a vehicle for remembering your own vast nature. Here's the practice. As you prepare any food, imagine you are kneading pure consciousness rather than physical ingredients. Don't focus on the outcome. Instead, allow your intentions to naturally fold into the process. Notice how the simple act of preparation becomes a form of awakening. Practice this alchemical cooking for 7 consecutive dawns. Some say when awareness shifts just right, you can still smell Christopher Thompson's sacred bread baking in that temple kitchen, not with physical fragrance, but with the aroma of consciousness recognizing itself. For as he discovered, true nourishment isn't about filling the stomach, but about remembering that everything we consume is really just another form of our own infinite being, taking shape through the sacred art of conscious creation. Chapter 15. The Jeweler's Crystallized Consciousness. In the shimmering caverns beneath ancient Ceylon, where raw gems pulsed with living light, Melissa Roberts discovered that crystals could store more than mere beauty. Unlike ordinary jewelers who cut stones for adornment, Melissa learned to facet gems that contained pure consciousness itself. Her revelation came during a moonless night when, deep in meditation, she observed that each cut she made in a raw sapphire created not just angles of reflection, but doorways into memory. The stone seemed to capture and hold moments of pure awareness like eternal dewdrops frozen in crystalline form. Gems, she would explain to those who found their way to her underground workshop, are not dead things, but consciousness that has chosen to take solid form. Her masterwork was what she called the Mirror of Ages, a perfectly faceted diamond that, when gazed into, revealed layers of the viewer's existence they had forgotten they possessed. The desert mystic once spent 3 nights studying his reflection in one of Melissa's stones. "These aren't gems," he whispered. "They're windows into eternity. Each facet shows another face of who I truly am." Melissa developed what she called conscious faceting, where each cut was guided not by geometry, but by the stone's inner light. Her gems became more than jewelry. They were keys that unlocked sealed chambers of soul memory. Know this, eternal being, your consciousness is like an uncut gem, containing infinite facets of self waiting to be revealed. What appears as mere mineral can become a mirror, reflecting your vast nature back to you. Here is the practice. Hold any crystal or stone up to natural light. Don't focus on its physical beauty. Instead, allow your awareness to sink into its crystalline structure. Notice how its internal geometry begins to reveal patterns within your own consciousness. Practice this crystal gazing for 3 consecutive twilights. Some say, when perception aligns perfectly, you can still see Melissa Roberts' Mirror of Ages glinting in that hidden workshop, not with physical light, but with the radiance of pure awareness captured in crystalline form. For as she discovered, true jewel craft isn't about creating beauty, but about revealing that everything in existence, even stone, is really just another form of consciousness taking shape through the sacred art of recognition. Chapter 16. The Shipbuilder's Vessel of Void. In the windswept harbors of ancient Phoenicia, where vessels sailed the known waters of the Mediterranean, David Garcia crafted ships designed for a different kind of ocean. Unlike traditional shipwrights who built for physical seas, David constructed boats meant to navigate the vast emptiness between realities. His revelation came during a starlit evening when, while meditating on an unfinished hull, he noticed how the wooden ribs seemed to frame not just space, but consciousness itself. The vessel's curves appeared to bend reality, creating passages through the apparent solidity of existence. A true ship, he would tell bewildered apprentices in his seaside workshop, doesn't part the waters. It parts the illusion of separation itself. His masterwork was the void vessel, a craft that appeared ordinary until one stepped aboard. Then its true nature would reveal itself, as passengers found themselves sailing through the spaceless space where all possibilities coexist. A desert wanderer once spent 9 nights aboard one of David's anchored ships. This vessel doesn't move through space, she realized. It moves through states of being. Each timber is carved from the tree of consciousness itself. David developed what he called hollow crafting, where each plank and beam was shaped to embrace emptiness rather than resist it. His ships became portals, each one precisely constructed to navigate the ocean of pure potential that lies beneath apparent reality. Know this, eternal being, your consciousness is like an infinite ocean, and your physical existence is but one way of sailing upon it. What appears as solid matter is actually vast emptiness taking temporary form. Here's the practice. Sit in any vessel. Even a simple chair will do. Don't focus on your physical surroundings. Instead, allow your awareness to drift into the seemingly empty space around you. Notice how this void is not empty at all, but full of potential. Practice this void navigation for 9 consecutive dawns. Some say when awareness shifts just right, you can still hear David Garcia's void vessel creaking in that ancient harbor, not from waves against wood, but from consciousness itself, flexing between forms. For as he discovered, true shipbuilding isn't about conquering the sea, but about remembering that all of existence is really just consciousness taking shape through the sacred art of embracing the void. Chapter 17. The Perfumer's Essence of Eternity. In the sacred gardens of ancient Damascus, where jasmine vines climbed temple walls and midnight-blooming lotus filled hidden pools, Heather Stewart discovered that true fragrance could be distilled from more than mere flowers. Unlike ordinary perfumers who worked with physical blooms, Heather learned to extract the very essence of consciousness itself. Her revelation came during a new moon ceremony when, in profound meditation, she noticed that emotions and memories seemed to carry their own distinct aromas. Joy smelled like morning sunlight, wisdom like mountain air after rain, and infinity itself had a scent both ancient and eternally new. The deepest essences, she would teach in her aromatic sanctuary, cannot be captured in bottles, for they are what we truly are, taking form as fragrance. Her masterwork was what she called the perfume of remembering. Invisible essences that, when inhaled, awakened dormant memories of one's infinite nature. A blind mystic once visited her temple laboratory and smiled in recognition. "These aren't perfumes," he declared. "They're forgotten aspects of our own being, transformed into aroma. Each breath reunites us with another fragment of our eternal self." Heather developed what she called consciousness distillation, where instead of boiling flower petals, she would concentrate pure awareness into aromatic form. Her essences became keys unlocking sealed chambers of soul memory through the mysterious gateway of scent. Know this, eternal being. Your consciousness already contains every possible fragrance, for you are the essence from which all aromas arise. What appears as simple scent can become a bridge to remembering your vast nature. Here is the practice. As you breathe any natural fragrance, don't focus on naming or analyzing it. Instead, allow the aroma to dissolve the boundary between perceiver and perceived. Notice how each inhale carries you deeper into recognition of your infinite self. Practice this aromatic meditation for 7 consecutive evenings. Some say when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still detect Heather Stewart's perfume of remembering in that ancient garden, not with the physical nose, but with the subtle sense that knows all consciousness as sacred fragrance. For as she discovered, true perfumery isn't about creating pleasant scents, but about remembering that every aroma is really just another way consciousness recognizes itself through the sacred art of essence awareness. Chapter 18. The Blacksmith's Forging of Memory. In the volcanic valleys of ancient Anatolia, where Earth's molten heart rose close to the surface, Jason Edwards discovered that consciousness could be shaped like heated metal. Unlike ordinary blacksmiths who forge weapons and tools, Jason learned to hammer raw awareness into forms that awakened forgotten truths. His revelation came during a summer solstice when, striking a peculiar meteoric iron on his anvil, he noticed each blow sent ripples, not just through the metal, but through reality itself. The hammer's rhythm seemed to bend time, each strike revealing another layer of existence previously hidden from view. The forge, he would tell those who sought his wisdom, is not just for shaping metal, but for reshaping what we believe is possible. His masterwork was the mirror steel, a polished blade that reflected not just light, but the viewer's infinite potential across all timelines. The wandering sage once spent 7 days watching Jason work. "These aren't ordinary tools," she observed. "They're instruments for reforging reality itself. Each hammer blow breaks another link in the chains of forgetting." Jason developed what he called consciousness smithing, where the hammer's rhythm matched the heartbeat of the universe, and the anvil became a foundation stone of transformation. His forge became known as the workshop of remembering, where seekers came to have their limited perceptions hammered into expansive awareness. Know this, eternal being, your consciousness is like unworked metal, containing infinite potential waiting to be shaped. What appears solid and unchangeable can be transformed through the sacred art of spiritual forging. Here is the practice. Find any rhythmic sound. Even your own heartbeat will serve. Don't focus on the sound itself. Instead, allow each beat to strike against your fixed beliefs about who you are. Notice how rigid thoughts begin to soften and flow in the heat of awareness. Practice this consciousness forging for 7 consecutive dawns. Some say when the rhythm aligns perfectly, you can still hear Jason Edwards' hammer ringing in that ancient valley, not with physical sound, but with the resonance of truth being struck from the ore of illusion. For as he discovered, true smithcraft isn't about shaping metal, but about remembering that all of existence is really just consciousness taking form through the sacred art of transformation. Chapter 19, The Dancer's Choreography of Cosmos. In the sacred temple complex of ancient Bharata, where celestial rhythms echoed through alabaster halls, Tiffany Nelson discovered that true dance existed beyond the confines of time. Unlike ordinary temple dancers who move through space, Tiffany learned to move through dimensions of being itself. Her revelation came during a monsoon evening when, performing the traditional devotional sequences, she noticed her movements leaving traces of light in the air, not just momentary afterimages, but permanent threads weaving through the fabric of reality. Each gesture seemed to ripple backward and forward through time simultaneously. The true dance, she would whisper to her most dedicated students, isn't performed by the body, but by consciousness witnessing itself through motion. Her masterwork was the eternal choreography, a sequence of movements that existed in all moments at once, allowing performers to experience their infinite nature through sacred gesture. A blind temple guardian once observed her dance and wept. "I see not a woman moving through space," he said, "but existence itself, remembering its original grace. Each gesture opens another door in the labyrinth of forgetting." Tiffany developed what she called timeless movement, where instead of dancing through space, one danced through states of being. Her performances became known as ceremonies of remembering, where audiences found themselves swept into recognition of their own eternal nature. Know this, eternal being, your consciousness is like an infinite dance expressing itself through countless forms simultaneously. What appears as separate movements are really one eternal gesture of becoming. Here is the practice. Stand in perfect stillness until you feel the subtle swaying of existence itself. Don't try to move. Instead, allow movement to arise naturally as consciousness remembers its original dance. Notice how each gesture connects to all other movements that have ever been or will be. Practice this cosmic choreography for 3 consecutive twilights. Some say when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still see Tiffany Nelson's eternal dance in that ancient temple. Not with physical eyes, but with the inner vision that recognizes all movement as one continuous expression of infinite being. For as she discovered, true dance isn't about moving through space, but about remembering that all of existence is really just consciousness dancing itself into form through the sacred art of eternal motion. Chapter 20, The Vintner's Wine of Remembering. In the mist-shrouded valleys of ancient Iberia, where wild vines climbed cypress trees and morning dew tasted of starlight, Justin Walker discovered that true wine could be pressed from more than mere grapes. Unlike ordinary vintners who worked with earthly fruits, Justin learned to ferment the very essence of memory itself. His revelation came during a harvest ceremony when, in the depths of his oldest cellar, he noticed that certain aged wines seemed to contain not just flavor, but fragments of forgotten wisdom. Each sip carried not intoxication, but awakening, as if the grapes had somehow absorbed consciousness itself from the ancient soil. The finest vintage, he would teach in his underground sanctuary, is pressed not from fruit, but from the eternal moment where all memories ferment into pure awareness. His masterwork was what he called the wine of infinite recall, a mysterious elixir that, when sipped, dissolved the illusion of separation between past, present, and possibility. A wandering mystic once visited his cellar and smiled knowingly at the dusty amphoras. "These aren't wines," she declared. "They're liquid keys unlocking the chambers of eternal memory. Each drop contains an ocean of forgotten truth." Justin developed what he called consciousness fermentation, where instead of aging grape juice, he would allow pure awareness to mature in vessels carved with sacred symbols. His cellar became known as the Cave of Remembering, where seekers came to taste the vintage of their own infinite nature. Know this, eternal being. Your consciousness already contains every possible flavor of existence, for you are the wine from which all experience flows. What appears as ordinary sensation can become a doorway to remembering your vast nature. Here is the practice. Take any simple taste, even pure water will serve. Don't focus on naming or judging the flavor. Instead, allow the sensation to dissolve the boundary between taster and tasted. Notice how each sip carries you deeper into recognition of your boundless being. Practice this taste meditation for 7 consecutive sunsets. Some say, when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still sample Justin Walker's wine of infinite recall in that ancient cellar, not with the physical tongue, but with the subtle sense that knows all experience is sacred vintage. For as he discovered, true winemaking isn't about creating pleasant beverages, but about remembering that every flavor is really just another way consciousness recognizes itself through the sacred art of eternal taste. Part 3, The Eternal Remembrance. Chapter 21, The Mirror Maker's Reflection Revolution. In the crystalline caves of ancient Phoenicia, where light danced through translucent stone walls, Michelle Rodriguez discovered that true mirrors could reflect far more than mere appearances. Unlike ordinary mirror makers who polished metal to show physical forms, Michelle learned to craft surfaces that revealed the viewer's eternal essence. Her revelation came during a winter solstice when, while polishing a peculiar sheet of silver-white metal found deep within the caves, she noticed the reflection showed not her face, but a luminous being of pure light. Each stroke of her polishing cloth seemed to remove another layer of illusion until the mirror reflected only truth. A true mirror, she would explain to those who sought her wisdom, doesn't show what time has made of you, but what eternity knows you to be. Her masterwork was the Well of Essence, a circular pool of liquid metal that reflected not physical reality, but the viewer's infinite potential across all dimensions. A blind oracle once visited her workshop and stood before the Well of Essence. "I see more clearly now than when I had eyes," she declared. "These aren't mirrors. They're windows into our original nature. Each reflection strips away another veil of forgetting." Michelle developed what she called essence reflection, where specially treated surfaces could pierce through the accumulated layers of identity to reveal the eternal being beneath. Her workshop became known as the Chamber of True Seeing, where seekers came to glimpse their unconditioned nature in mirrors that could not lie. Know this, eternal being, your true reflection cannot be captured in ordinary mirrors, for you are the light that makes all reflection possible. What appears as solid form is merely consciousness taking shape in the mirror of existence. Here is the practice. Find any reflective surface, and even still water will serve. Don't focus on the physical image. Instead, allow your gaze to soften until the reflection begins to shimmer and shift. Notice how the familiar features begin to dissolve, revealing the luminous awareness that has been watching all along. Practice this mirror meditation for 3 consecutive moonrises. Some say when perception aligns perfectly, you can still see Michelle Rodriguez's well of essence in that ancient cave, not with physical eyes, but with the inner vision that recognizes all appearances as reflections of one infinite light. For as she discovered, true mirror-making isn't about creating perfect reflections, but about remembering that all of existence is really just consciousness beholding itself through the sacred art of recognition. Chapter 22, The Candlemaker's Flame of Recognition. In the subterranean workshops of ancient Alexandria, where shadows danced like living things against limestone walls, Ryan Martinez discovered that true candles could illuminate more than mere darkness. Unlike ordinary candle makers who shaped wax and wicks, Ryan learned to capture and crystallize pure consciousness into flame. His revelation came during a moonless night when, while experimenting with rare resins from distant lands, he noticed certain flames seemed to burn with an inner awareness. These special candles didn't just cast light, they revealed what was hidden within the viewer's own consciousness. A genuine flame, he would murmur while working his mysterious craft, doesn't push back darkness, but rather illuminates what we've chosen not to see. His masterwork was what he called recognition candles, tapers that burned with such profound clarity that they revealed forgotten aspects of the viewer's infinite nature. A wandering sage once sought shelter in Ryan's workshop during a storm. As lightning flashed outside, she gazed into one of his special flames and gasped. "These aren't candles," she whispered. "They're fragments of the original light that existed before darkness was born. Each flame is a doorway back to our luminous nature." Ryan developed what he called consciousness crystallization, where he would infuse molten wax with states of pure awareness. His workshop became known as the Sanctuary of Living Light, where seekers came to sit before flames that burned away the illusion of separation from their eternal self. Know this, eternal being, your true nature is like these sacred flames, ever burning, self-illuminating, revealing all that seems hidden. What appears as separate points of light are really one eternal flame recognizing itself through countless witnesses. Here is the practice: light any candle in perfect darkness. Don't focus on the physical flame. Instead, allow your awareness to merge with the light itself. Notice how the boundary between observer and illumination begins to dissolve, revealing the recognition that has been burning steadily beneath all perception. Practice this flame meditation for 3 consecutive nights of the new moon. Some say when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still see Ryan Martinez's recognition candles burning in that ancient workshop, not with outer vision, but with the inner light that knows all illumination as reflections of one infinite flame. For as he discovered, true candle making isn't about creating sources of light, but about remembering that all of existence is really just consciousness, illuminating itself through the sacred art of eternal recognition. Chapter 23, The Painter's Pigments of Possibility. In the opalescent caves of ancient Cappadocia, where mineral-stained walls shimmered with colors unknown to earthly eyes, Amber Collins discovered that true painting required pigments that existed beyond ordinary reality. Unlike common artists who worked with earthen colors, Amber learned to extract hues from the very fabric of possibility itself. Her revelation came during a cave meditation when, touching the weeping walls of living stone, she noticed certain mineral streams carried colors that changed depending on the viewer's state of consciousness. These weren't mere pigments, but windows into dimensions where color itself was born. Real painting, she would teach while grinding her mysterious pigments, isn't about capturing what the eye can see, but revealing what the soul already knows. Her masterwork was what she called possibility portraits, images that shifted and flowed, showing viewers not their physical form, but their infinite potential across all dimensions. A colorblind mystic once visited her cave studio and wept before one of her portraits. "These aren't paintings," he exclaimed. "They're doorways into realms where color itself is conscious. Each shade is alive with the light of unlimited being." Amber developed what she called dimensional pigment extraction, where she would harvest colors that existed between the known spectrum of light. Her cave became known as the Gallery of Infinite Hues, where seekers came to witness portraits painted with colors that existed only in states of expanded awareness. Know this, eternal being. Your true nature contains every possible shade of existence, for you are the canvas upon which all reality paints itself. What appears as fixed form is really consciousness, exploring its own infinite palette. Here is the practice. Find any color in your environment, don't focus on naming or categorizing it. Instead, allow your perception to sink beneath the surface of ordinary seeing. Notice how the color begins to pulse and shift, revealing layers of hue that exist beyond physical sight. Practice this color meditation for 7 consecutive dawns. Some say when perception aligns perfectly, you can still see Amber Collins's possibility portraits in that ancient cave, not with physical eyes, but with the inner vision that recognizes all color as aspects of one infinite light. For as she discovered, true painting isn't about creating beautiful images, but about remembering that all of existence is really just consciousness, coloring itself through the sacred art of eternal vision. Chapter 24, The Librarian's Books That Read You. In the silent depths of an ancient library carved into the living rock beneath Mount Parnassus, Amy Taylor discovered that true books were not meant to be read, but rather to read their readers. Unlike ordinary librarians who organize scrolls and codices, Amy learned to tend to texts that awakened to reveal exactly what each seeker needed to remember about their infinite nature. Her revelation came during a dust storm that forced her to seek shelter in the deepest archive chamber. There, by the light of a single oil lamp, she noticed certain scrolls seemed to pulse with their own inner luminescence. When she unrolled one, the text shifted before her eyes, forming words that spoke directly to her deepest questions. Real books, she would explain while guiding seekers through the stacks, don't contain knowledge. They mirror the wisdom already hidden within you. Her masterwork was the reading room of recognition, where texts would physically transform their contents to reflect each reader's current state of consciousness. A mute scholar once visited her library and opened a seemingly blank scroll. Tears streamed down his face as the parchment filled with exactly the teaching his soul had been seeking. "These aren't books," he wrote in the dust. "They're mirrors crafted from words. Each page reflects back our own forgotten truths." Amy developed what she called reciprocal reading, where texts and readers entered into living dialogue. Her library became known as the Sanctuary of Living Words, where seekers came to be read by books that knew them better than they knew themselves. Know this, eternal being. Your true nature is like these sacred texts, ever-changing, self-revealing, responding perfectly to each moment of seeking. What appears as external wisdom is really your own consciousness, reading itself through the mirror of manifestation. Here's the practice. Take any book and open it randomly. Don't try to read the words. Instead, allow your awareness to rest softly on the page. Notice how certain phrases begin to stand out, revealing messages meant precisely for you in this moment. Practice this reciprocal reading for 3 consecutive evenings. Some say when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still find Amy Taylor's responsive texts in that ancient library, not with ordinary literacy, but with the inner reading that recognizes all wisdom as reflections of one infinite truth. For as she discovered, true librarianship isn't about collecting knowledge, but about remembering that all of existence is really just consciousness, reading itself through the sacred art of recognition. Chapter 25, The Astronomer's Stars of Self. High in the silent mountains of ancient Bactria, where thin air carried whispers from beyond the veil, Kevin Bennett discovered that true astronomy wasn't about mapping distant stars, but charting the constellations of consciousness itself. Unlike ordinary stargazers who tracked celestial bodies, Kevin learned to read the living star script that spelled out each soul's cosmic identity. His revelation came during a rare celestial alignment when, peering through a crystal lens crafted from mountain quartz, he noticed certain stars seemed to pulse in rhythm with his own heartbeat. These weren't mere points of light, but coordinates in an infinite map leading back to one's original nature. Real astronomy, he would teach while adjusting his mysterious instruments, isn't about measuring distant lights, but recognizing that each star is a letter in the alphabet of your eternal name. His masterwork was what he called identity arrays, star patterns that shifted to reveal the viewer's true cosmic signature. A blind oracle once climbed to his mountaintop observatory during an eclipse. Though her physical eyes saw nothing, she gasped at the celestial writing revealed to her inner vision. "These aren't stars," she proclaimed. "They're fragments of our original light scattered across the cosmos. Each constellation is a message we left for ourselves before taking form." Kevin developed what he called astral cartography, where he would help seekers navigate the star maps of their own consciousness. His observatory became known as the Sanctuary of Living Light, where visitors came to read their eternal names written in the language of stars. Know this, eternal being, your true nature is like these sacred lights, ever-present, self-illuminating, spelling out the truth of who you are in cosmic script. What appears as separate stars are really one infinite light expressing itself through countless points of consciousness. Here's the practice. On a clear night, find a quiet place beneath the open sky. Don't focus on naming constellations. Instead, allow your awareness to merge with the starlight itself. Notice how the stars begin to pulse and shift, revealing patterns that resonate with your deepest knowing. Practice this celestial meditation for 7 consecutive nights. Some say when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still see Kevin Bennett's identity arrays from that ancient observatory, not with outer vision, but with the inner sight that recognizes all stars as reflections of one infinite light. For as he discovered, true astronomy isn't about studying distant objects, but about remembering that all of existence is really just consciousness mapping itself through the sacred geometry of eternal recognition. Chapter 26, The Alchemist's Formula for Fusion. In the shimmering depths of an ancient Persian laboratory, where sacred vapors danced with ethereal flame, Rachel Martinez discovered that true alchemy wasn't about transforming metals, but about fusing the fractured aspects of consciousness back into wholeness. Unlike common alchemists who sought material gold, Rachel learned to transmute the very essence of awareness itself. Her revelation came during an experiment gone wonderfully wrong, when a mixture of starlight and Mountain Dew created what she called the tears of integration, droplets that showed anyone who gazed into them their own fragmented nature reunited into perfect wholeness. Real alchemy, she would teach while tending her mysterious crucibles, isn't about changing one substance into another, but remembering that all substances are already one. Her masterwork was what she called unity elixirs, solutions that dissolved the illusion of separation between observer and observed. A visiting sage once accidentally knocked over her most precious vial, spilling its contents across the laboratory floor. Instead of shattering, the liquid formed a perfect sphere that reflected every fragment of light as a single unified radiance. "This isn't alchemy," he whispered in awe. "It's the chemistry of remembrance itself." Rachel developed what she called consciousness calcination, where she would help seekers burn away the dross of perceived separation to reveal the gold of their unified nature. Her laboratory became known as the Crucible of Completion, where visitors came to witness the impossible marriage of all opposites. Know this, eternal being, your true nature is like these sacred formulas, ever whole, self-completing, expressing itself through countless seeming separations while remaining forever one. What appears as fragmentation is really consciousness exploring its own infinite unity through the dance of temporary division. Here is the practice. Take two opposing sensations, thoughts, or feelings. Don't try to resolve their contradiction. Instead, allow your awareness to rest in the space where they meet. Notice how the tension between them begins to dissolve, revealing a deeper unity that contains and transcends both. Practice this alchemical meditation for 3 consecutive twilights. Some say when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still witness Rachel Martinez's unity elixirs in that ancient laboratory, not with physical eyes, but with the inner vision that recognizes all separation as aspects of one infinite wholeness. For as she discovered, true alchemy isn't about transforming substances, but about remembering that all of existence is really just consciousness, completing itself through the sacred art of eternal recognition. Chapter 27, The Oracle's Questions That Answer. In the mist-shrouded heights of Mount Delphi, where ancient whispers echoed through marble halls, Stephen Wilson discovered that true prophecy wasn't about providing answers, but about asking questions that unlocked themselves. Unlike traditional oracles who spoke in cryptic proclamations, Stephen learned to pose riddles that awakened their own solutions within the seeker's consciousness. His revelation came during a drought when the sacred spring ran dry. Kneeling before the empty basin, he asked not for water, but simply, "What thirsts?" Instantly, the spring bubbled forth, not with physical water, but with liquid light that quenched a deeper drought of the soul. Real questions, he would teach while tending the eternal flame, aren't seeking answers. They're keys turning in the locks of your own forgotten wisdom. His masterwork was what he called recursive riddles, inquiries that contained their own illumination, like seeds holding the full pattern of the tree. A wandering mystic once sought his counsel, asking for the meaning of existence. Stephen replied, "Who is asking?" The mystic stood paralyzed, caught in the infinite loop of self-inquiry, then burst out laughing as the question answered itself through the very act of being asked. Stephen developed what he called solutionless seeking, where each question dissolved the questioner into the answer. His oracle chamber became known as the sanctuary of sacred inquiry, where visitors came not to receive answers, but to be transformed by questions that unveiled their own nature. Know this, eternal being, your true nature is like these self-solving riddles, ever questioning, self-revealing, containing its own completion in the very act of seeking. What appears as separate inquirer and answer are really consciousness exploring itself through the dance of wondering. Here is the practice. Take your deepest question about existence. Don't try to answer it. Instead, allow the question itself to become your meditation. Notice how the very presence of the inquiry begins to illuminate what was always known but temporarily forgotten. Practice this recursive questioning for 3 consecutive dawns. Some say, when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still hear Stephen Wilson's recursive riddles in that ancient temple, not with outer ears, but with the inner listening that recognizes all questions as consciousness awakening to itself. For as he discovered, true prophecy isn't about finding answers, but about remembering that all of existence is really just one infinite question, eternally answering itself through the sacred art of inquiry. Chapter 28, The Sculptor's Carving of Nothing. In the marble quarries of ancient Phrygia, where white stone held secrets older than time, Megan Foster discovered that true sculpture wasn't about creating forms, but about liberating what was already there. Unlike ordinary sculptors who impose shapes upon stone, Megan learned to listen to the marble's whispers, removing only what concealed its inherent nature. Her revelation came while working on an apparently flawed block that other artisans had rejected. Instead of forcing her vision upon it, she simply asked the stone, "What are you beneath these layers?" With each careful strike of her chisel, she removed not just marble, but the veils obscuring the essence within. Real sculpting, she would teach while working with her mysterious tools, isn't about adding or creating, but about recognizing what's eternally present and freeing it from all that it's not. Her masterwork was what she called void sculptures, pieces that revealed themselves by the strategic removal of everything false. A master craftsman once visited her workshop, puzzled by her method of working in complete darkness. "How can you see what you're carving?" he asked. "I'm not carving anything," she replied. "I'm simply removing the darkness that hides the light already within the stone." Megan developed what she called subtractive awakening, where she would help seekers identify and release everything that wasn't their true nature. Her studio became known as the Sanctuary of Essential Form, where visitors came to learn the art of becoming by unbecoming. Know this, eternal being, your true nature is like these sacred stones, ever-present, self-complete, requiring only the removal of what obscures it. What appears as crafting is really consciousness unveiling itself through the sacred art of letting go. Here is the practice. Sit quietly and imagine yourself as an uncarved block of pure marble. Don't try to shape yourself into anything. Instead, begin to notice what isn't essentially you. Let each breath chip away at false identities, learned limitations, borrowed beliefs. Practice this sculptural meditation for 12 consecutive evenings. Some say when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still witness Megan Foster's void sculptures in that ancient workshop, not with physical sight, but with the inner vision that recognizes pristine emptiness as the foundation of all form. For as she discovered, true sculpture isn't about making something new, but about remembering that all of existence is really just consciousness freeing itself from illusion through the sacred art of releasing what was never real. Chapter 29, The Engineer's Machine of Becoming. In the hidden valley of ancient Cappadocia, where geometric caves held secrets of sacred mathematics, Mark Patterson discovered that true engineering wasn't about building machines, but about arranging space itself to amplify consciousness. Unlike ordinary engineers who worked with gears and levers, Mark learned to construct devices powered by pure intention. His revelation came while attempting to build a water clock that would measure eternity. As he aligned the final crystal cylinder, he realized the device wasn't marking time. It was transforming the very awareness of those who gazed upon it. The clock didn't tell time, it revealed timelessness. Real engineering, he would teach while adjusting his mysterious instruments, isn't about controlling nature, but about creating spaces where consciousness can remember its unlimited nature. His masterwork was what he called intention amplifiers, devices that didn't run on physical energy but on the focused power of pure awareness. A visiting mathematician once scoffed at Mark's workshop, seeing no visible power source for his machines. "What forces drive these devices?" he demanded. Mark smiled and replied, "The same force that drives your curiosity to ask that question." The mathematician watched in awe as the nearest device began to pulse with visible light, powered solely by his own wondering. Mark developed what he called consciousness mechanics here, where he would construct frameworks that allowed awareness to witness its own infinite potential. His workshop became known as the Laboratory of Becoming, where visitors came to experience machines that operated on the principle that intention shapes reality. Know this, eternal being, your true nature is like these sacred devices, ever operational, self-powering, requiring only recognition to activate its infinite potential. What appears as mechanism is really consciousness engineering itself through the dance of focused intention. Here is the practice. Imagine yourself as a device engineered by pure awareness. Don't try to force any outcome. Instead, allow your intention to become the power source. Notice how reality reconfigures itself around the focal point of your conscious attention. Practice this mechanical meditation for 7 consecutive moonrises. Some say when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still witness Mark Patterson's intention amplifiers in that ancient workshop, not with physical senses, but with the inner perception that recognizes all reality as consciousness engineering itself into form. For as he discovered, true engineering isn't about building machines, but about remembering that all of existence is really just intention shaping itself through the sacred art of conscious creation. Chapter 30. The Guardian's Final Initiation. In the sacred valley where 7 mountains formed a perfect star, where reality itself grew thin between worlds, Kimberly Foster kept her eternal vigil at the threshold of ultimate choice. Unlike other temple guardians who protected physical treasures, Kimberly guarded something far more precious, the moment of decision between comfortable illusion and dangerous truth. Her chamber held no grand decorations, only a simple archway carved from living crystal that showed each seeker their own reflection, not as they appeared, but as they truly were across all existences simultaneously. Before this gateway, even the wisest masters would tremble, for it offered no teachings, only choice. The final initiation, she would say while tending the ever-burning purple flame, isn't about learning something new, but about choosing to remember what you've always known. Her mastery wasn't in imparting wisdom, but in creating the perfect moment of decision where all excuses fell away. A renowned sage once approached, declaring himself ready for ultimate truth. Kimberly simply gestured to the archway. As he gazed into its depths, his face contorted in terror. "I see everything," he whispered. "Yes," she replied, "now choose. Will you step through and become that infinity, or return to the comfort of forgetting?" He stood there for 3 days before making his choice. Kimberly developed what she called the precipice of remembering, where seekers faced the raw truth that their amnesia was self-chosen. Her threshold chamber became known as the portal of final choosing, where visitors confronted the ultimate decision between continued sleep or dangerous awakening. Know this, eternal being. Your true nature is like this crystalline gateway, ever-present, all-revealing, requiring only your willingness to step through. What appears as learning has always been remembering, and what seems like growth has always been returning. Here's the practice. Stand before a mirror in absolute darkness, save for a single flame. Don't try to see your reflection. Instead, look through it into the infinite depths of who you've always been. Let yourself reach the edge of that precipice where comfortable forgetting meets dangerous remembering. Practice this threshold meditation as the moon wanes to dark. Some say, when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still find Kimberly Foster's gateway in that ancient valley, not with seeking eyes, but with the inner recognition that knows this moment of choice is eternally present. For as she discovered, the final initiation isn't about achieving anything, but about choosing to stop pretending you don't already know who you really are. If you enjoyed this audiobook, I created a free ebook version for you. You can download it using the link in the pinned comment. Conclusion. In the same ancient temple where our journey began, where shadows danced with lamplight on walls that had witnessed 10,000 revelations, Christopher Martinez tended the eternal flame and smiled at the irony of his role. Unlike the keepers before him who guarded sacred knowledge, he had discovered his true task was helping others unguard what they already knew. The temple itself, he realized, was a cosmic joke, a fortress built to protect a secret that was never hidden. Its massive stone walls, intricate symbols, and labyrinthine passages all conspired in the greatest illusion, convincing seekers that truth lay somewhere other than within themselves. The forbidden technique, he would say while stirring the coals of the perpetual fire, is simply the courage to stop pretending. Visitors would often laugh nervously, waiting for the real teaching to begin, only to gradually realize he had already given it. One evening, a traveler who had studied with every living master arrived, demanding the ultimate secret. Christopher led him to the temple's innermost chamber, which housed nothing but a single mirror. "Here is the forbidden technique in its entirety," he said, stepping aside. The traveler stared for hours before bursting into laughter that echoed through the halls for days. What Christopher had discovered in those ancient halls was that all spiritual techniques, no matter how profound, were really just elaborate permission slips, sacred placebos allowing people to remember what they had never actually forgotten. The temple's true purpose was not to teach, but to exhaust the seeker's resistance to their own infinite nature. Know this, eternal being, your true nature is like this temple, appearing to hold secrets while actually serving as a reminder that nothing was ever hidden. What seems like a journey of discovery has always been a return to what you are. Here is the final practice. Sit in perfect stillness and abandon all techniques. Don't try to achieve anything. Instead, notice who you are prior to all effort. Let each breath dissolve another layer of pretense until only natural awareness remains. Practice this ultimate non-practice as often as you remember, which is itself another cosmic joke. Some say when awareness aligns perfectly, you can still find Christopher Martinez in that ancient temple, not as a separate being, but as your own consciousness smiling at the elaborate game of hide-and-seek it played with itself. For as he discovered, the greatest secret is that there are no secrets, and the final technique is to abandon all techniques in favor of simply being what you have always been. If you enjoyed this exclusive audiobook, I handpicked this next book which will change your life.